So, I've been wanting to talk about something that's like legit been on my mind a lot, and that's just pretty much being the oldest in the family. Like, being the oldest is some shit. It's for real. So, anyone who grew up with parents who were working all the time and you had to take care of your siblings and you had to cook and you had to help clean and you had to help manage the household, all of that shit is so beyond me, because now as an adult I'm like, I don't fucking want kids. Like, I raised my fucking sisters and that was some shit. Because there's this fine line between be a parent but don't be too much of a parent because you're not actually the parent, and it's shitty. Because I remember days where my sisters would get in trouble and I would be crying because they're getting spanked the way they're getting spanked, and I didn't believe in that, and then vice versa, and then it also came to the oldest always got the rap for you get the rap for everything, so you become adults, you go your separate ways, and you're learning to navigate life without your family and without your siblings. As far as like my case, I grew up very close with my sisters. We were together all the time. My parents didn't let me fucking out of their sight. Literally, like, I had to, if I wanted to go on a date, my sisters all went with me. Like, it was like that. So being the oldest, you learn all of this shit that your parents are like teaching you, they're putting you through. You learn to cover your emotions, you learn to mask what's going on, you learn to be strong, you learn to be the protector, you learn to be a mother and a father, just all these things, and all these roles affect you when you become an adult. And the fact that people don't see that is super fucking sad. You want to know why? Because this is the thing. I grew up in a household where as a girl, my mom was so dead set on raising us as independent women. We weren't gonna need no man. We weren't gonna, all this stuff. So in that mindset of her not wanting us to go through all the shit that she went through growing up, she taught us, don't show your feelings, be strong, always be strong. You don't need help. You're independent. You can do it. Where there's a will, there's a way, which I'm grateful for, because honestly, my willpower and my independence came from a lot of that. But the part that is hard is learning to let your guard down and not to be so strong, and letting other people listen to your feelings. Learning to be in touch with your feelings is a way of, breaking through those walls that you were taught for so many years to hide and to mask and not to show. When he expresses his feelings, a lot of the times it's seen as, you're too sensitive, you're too dramatic. And I've ran into the same shit with my family, you're too sensitive, you're too dramatic. But what we both have realized is that the both of us being the oldest, we have gone through a lot where we are trying to unlearn a lot of the shit that we went through, a lot of the shit that we've seen, a lot of shit that we witnessed, as children, watching my dad beat up my mom, watching, for him, it was watching his dad beat up his mom, different things like that parents don't want to talk about now as adults, but they affected our upbringing in somehow, in some way. So now, as an adult, you're the oldest of the family, you're unlearning all this shit, and your parents aren't happy because, you're learning all this shit. And it's not that they're not happy that you're growing, it's just they don't know how to react to feelings, how to react to communication, how to react to, no one taught either one of our families how to react, how to respond, how to listen. No one taught them how to communicate their feelings. No one taught them what feelings were. No one taught them that feelings were important. So we grew up thinking all these things. Then we come to a household together, and you see the mesh of the different households clash, because he grew up in a very machista mindset. I grew up in a very independent woman mindset, and those two together can create a lot of chaos. And that's when we had to tap in and be like, okay, what's the root of all of this? Where are we not communicating, And we've come to realize that, being the oldest, you are usually the first one to realize a lot of the things that your parents did, a lot of the things that you went through, a lot of things that you have been feeling over the years. You're usually the first one, because you're usually the one that has been out of it the usually the one that's been out of it the longest. Like in my case, I moved out when I was 21. My family shamed me for it. My family was mad at me for it. They thought I hated them because I didn't want to be there. I just was like, I can no longer live here. This environment is not healthy for me. I'm 21 years old. I should be able to leave my home. Growing up in a Mexican household, the biggest thing was like, you can't leave until you're married, you know. So I was like, I'm not getting married anytime soon, and I can't live here, you know. So it wasn't healthy for me. Ray left his home when he graduated high school, and he's been in and out when he was, you know, we weren't together and stuff. And for a little while when we were together, we lived with his family. But the machista roles always continue to, you know, hinder our relationship in ways, because, you know, it's shit that he's trying to unlearn. So with like me sharing this, it's just because a lot of my friends that I have are oldest. They have seen the struggle. Like I left home, right? So I left home because I didn't feel that I could thrive in that environment. I was tired of feeling like I was never enough. A lot of the shit that my mom went through, she didn't deal with, so I left me to deal with, and I was the first one growing up. So I feel like I got it the worst out of the sisters. Also because, you know, there's a lot of things that I remember that my sisters don't remember, and that I don't like to talk about because, you know, at the end of the day, those are their parents. And they're my parents too, but one thing that irks me is when parents love to act like they didn't do anything, and then when you fucking try to live your life, they want to judge everything you're doing and everything you're saying and everything you're about, when they don't realize that they were in your shoes as well. Because, you know, I feel like growing up in the United States, people have this idea of like, oh, now that you're here, like, you have access to everything. My parents are like, you have papers, you should be able to do whatever you want. And it's like, no, just because I have papers doesn't mean I can do whatever I want, because my parents don't have papers. So that means that, you know, in that way, those different points of access were closed for me because my parents didn't have access. So the parents that had access in my age, like during when I was growing up, were a lot of my friends, and I would always cry to my mom and be like, why is their life so easy? Why is their life so perfect? Why is their life seem normal? And it was because, you know, I didn't grow up in access. I didn't grow up in a family that shared their feelings or communicated or let you know that it was okay to feel things. And my boyfriend didn't either. And so now as adults, trying to teach that to my stepson and trying to teach it to his son, and, you know, and just like dealing with life, it's been hard to unlearn. It's been hard to go through that journey and unlearn the fucking bullshit that we've gone through. So, you know, unlearning is a process. Unlearning is hard. Unlearning is, you know, trying, because you will fail. You know, there will be days where you relapse. There will be days where you do something that the old you did, and you're like, but at least you're recognizing it, and that's where growth comes in. It's really hard to, you know, be the oldest and feel like you're alone, and to feel like no one has your back because you're doing all of this work by yourself. But at the end of the day, you're gonna reap the benefits. I am so much happier. I am so much more myself. I feel so more liberated in different ways, you know, of being able to freely be who I am. Our parents have different ideas because they grew up in a different generation, and there's that cultural disconnect between us and our parents. But honestly, I'm very hopeful that, you know, with time, they'll be able to see the example I'm leading and setting and leading with, you know, as well as for my partner. You know, we're both just trying to strive and take care of our emotional health, our mental health, our, you know, focus on communication. And if people aren't ready to listen to your feelings, and people aren't ready to listen to what you have to say, a lot of the times it's because they haven't been able to meet themselves where you're at. And that should tell you a lot. You know, have more empathy instead of anger. And I mean that by, like, it's so easy to be upset that someone doesn't see what you're saying. It's so easy to be triggered and go down a rabbit hole of feelings if, you know, the person you want isn't listening to what you want, you know. And I think it just goes to show that you need to live your life more authentically and genuinely, and just focus on yourself, because at the end of the day, you are the only person that knows what is right for you. You're the only person that knows what's going on in your head 24/7. And I think it's important. practice resiliency, practice, being yourself regardless of what others have to say, because a lot of the times when you're growing and your family isn't, it's hard to watch and it's hard to see, and it's easy to want them to see what you're seeing, but at the end of the day, I feel like life is a process and everyone goes through their own growth journey at their own time. And is anyone to say that anyone's feelings aren't valid, anyone's feelings are too sensitive or too dramatic? If someone's feeling something, it's because they're feeling it. And giving them room to speak that truth to you goes to show where your relationship is at. If you can't listen to someone without reacting, maybe you need to take a look inward before you react the next time, because sometimes reacting is the easiest way to get your way across, but you're not listening to the other person, you're not hearing out the other person, and you're hindering your relationship with the other. I think a lot of the times people always ask me, why don't you talk to your mom? Why don't you talk to your dad? Do you hate them? Is that why you don't talk to them? And it's like, no, I don't hate them. I just, for myself, mentally and emotionally at this point in my life, I know that it is easier for me to love them at a distance, because a lot of the things that they've done in the past have hurt me and they've triggered me. And when families don't respect boundaries, that's when you distance yourself. That's when okay, if you're not going to respect what I have to say, if you're not going to respect what I have going on, then just pull back a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. And families want to make it like, oh, you hate me, oh, you don't like us, oh, you think you're better than us. And it's just, no, it's just that you're learning to live your life authentically to your needs and your wants and what is going on inside of you and no one else. And sometimes it's hard for people to understand that when they're not actively seeking growth. So if you are an oldest, and I just want you to know that I hear you and I see you and I know exactly what you're going through. If you're trying to, undo all the bullshit that you've learned over the years, all your childhood, if you're trying to work through the intergenerational trauma that has been going on for years in your family, and you're trying to figure out how to undo that, I see you, because it's fucking hard work. It's different when you grow up in a family that doesn't have access. It's different when you grow up in a family that isn't documented. It's, a family that didn't grow up with feelings and communication and open communication. It's fucking hard. And just know that, your work is phenomenal. Your work is gonna be here, and your children will benefit from it. You will benefit from it. Your relationships will benefit from it. Go out to the world and find your people, because there's so many amazing people on this planet that, there's so many people you can relate with. Find the right friends, find your right groups. Sometimes we get so caught up in like, oh, they're blood, I should be nice to them. They're my family, I should be nice. Sometimes family's fucked up, and if you need a space from your family, just take the space. But, just know that with that comes the repercussions of people not wanting, of them talking, and that's just, that's the price you have to pay for your own peace of mind sometimes. And in my opinion, it's worth it, because I feel better and I can come back to my family and be better, and if they want to see my growth or not, that's fine. But I know what I'm doing, and I know my motives, and I know why I do what I do, and I think that's all that matters at the end of the day.